este tango que es burlón y compadrito, Sancho dos a la ilusión de mi suburbio.
Hello, my name is Tom Hoeksema, and I want to welcome you to our 30th anniversary conference of ALTA, the American Literary Translators Association. This is a very exciting time for all of us. This is our fourth visit to Dallas for a conference, and we're here this weekend to celebrate the past of ALTA and to look forward to the many opportunities and challenges that lie before us as an organization. This 30th anniversary conference is really a milestone event for all of us. It's certainly a time to celebrate our collective achievements, but maybe more importantly, it's time for us to reimagine the role of translation and the translator in the whole world of arts and letters, and to reinvigorate our understanding of how translation plays a role, a very important role, in cross-cultural communication and understanding. So as we celebrate this 30th anniversary of ALTA, I think we all recognize we're talking about much more than just an organization. We're talking about the love of international literature and the rewards of associating with our colleagues and our friends who have devoted their lives and their careers to the craft, art, and theory of translation. Join us now as we look back at how and why ALTA came into being, what it was like 30 years ago in the beginning in 1978. We'll look at some of the accomplishments of the organization during these first 3 decades, and then we will conclude with some thoughts about ALTA's future. We certainly hope that you will enjoy this video celebration of ALTA at 30.
I'll tell you, everyone watching this tape, if you're at ALTA right now, you know how much you anticipated this meeting. You couldn't wait to come to the readings. At a good ALTA, maybe to watch Alexis Levitin dance. To converse with old friends, to get new ideas. This is truly an organization and a conference that celebrates union, the union of scholarship with creativity.
ALTA was the product of a vision by Rainer Schulte and Leslie Wilson in 1978. Together, they recognized the need for a formal organization that would represent translators, advocate on their behalf, and bring them together in a community of shared interests. Over the past 30 years, that vision has been refined in many ways that have benefited translators and enriched the field of literary translation.
Rainer and Leslie Wilson started ALTA together, and I'm very happy to be at the very first meeting and become a charter member at that time. So from the beginning, ALTA was tremendously important to me, as I think it's been for all translators. Rainer was the important person for my early translation life, and also, of course, has been all that time for ALTA as well, so I'm very grateful to him for that.
And I saw an announcement about the first conference of the American Literary Translators Association in Dallas in 1978, and noticed that I was included on the program. So I called Rainer, and he said that, as a matter of fact, I was speaking at the conference. And so I attended and met a group of people that have remained friends for the last 30 years.
It's always difficult to start an organization like ALTA because it relies on a lot of volunteer help and a lot of institutional support. And so the discussions went on for a couple of years, and Rainer collaborated with his colleagues across the country, talking about ideas for the organization. And he and Leslie Wilson got together. Leslie was at University of Texas at Austin, and they put together a structure and just organized a conference and started inviting people. And I think a lot of the structure of ALTA evolved from that first conference and developed into the organization we recognize today. The first conference was exciting. I remember that it was in 1978, in October, I believe.
My first ALTA was in Amherst, and I think that would maybe have been 1979. I'm not sure of the year of the conference. And I was living in New York, and I took the bus up to Amherst, and I'd just gone freelance if it was 1979. I've been freelance since 1978, and met many of the people I still know in ALTA were at the Amherst conference. I've known them, so getting on towards 30 years at any rate.
I love ALTA, and it's affectionate, good organization. I would like to remember it 28 years ago, if I'm not wrong, at Amherst when I met Fitzgerald and the whole gang of people were there, all the best-known poets in the country who are always good translators. There was no exception almost in the last 50 years.
In the mid-'80s, my wife and I went, as I had mentioned, to ALTA and found it the most sparklingly alive organization we had been a part of.
And it remains today our favorite professional organization. And I think it was Reiner's having thought through what doesn't work about professional organizations.
I did want to see this organization not as a purely academic organization, but as an organization where translators, in this case literary translators, were going to use their imagination and their creativity to transplant texts from all over the world into English. And therefore, I wanted to make sure that this was not going to be a purely academic institution and an academic association.
But Reiner had some business to perform that day. He had to drive up to Sherman, Texas, to be sworn in as a citizen of the United States. So on the first day of the ALTA conference, the first ALTA conference, Reiner became Citizen Schulte. Over the years, ALTA has provided a broad range of benefits and services to its members. The organization is a source of much valuable information in the form of news about publishers and journals and grants and prizes and the like. All of these things inform and educate the membership. But I think of equal importance, ALTA has brought translators together in common cause and given them a collective voice.
So the first thing it really provides is a shared space for conversation, for thought, for support. And I think it's impossible to overstate the importance of that notion of a community of translators. Obviously, allied with that, it provides professional support, advice, influence. We've been able to help translators be published. We've been able to help academic translators be recognized and gain tenure. I think another benefit from my standpoint, of course, is that we're raising the role of translation in teaching.
Everyone, I think, is eager to see all translators succeed. And I think there is a great spirit of generosity among the membership. I think the organization is working very hard and can continue to improve its services to the membership in both providing information and providing connections. The best mentor for a translator will be another translator.
You know, the great thing about ALTA and the conference is that we can meet people who are translating other languages. We can meet publishers. We can meet a lot of other people that we normally wouldn't have contact with in a normal course of our work. This morning, for example, I was at a panel on the translation of Scandinavian languages. I don't know a Scandinavian language, but I went to this panel to listen to some of the issues that these people deal with, and it was fascinating. I learned all kinds of things about Scandinavia, Scandinavian languages, literature, things that I never knew anything about.
What I find most valuable is the fellowship and the affirmation of the collegiality of it all. And that takes place on every level, from the most formal to the most informal. And that for me is what I find most valuable here.
So I think that associations for literary translators are really very important. It gives us not only the camaraderie, but the opportunity to really talk about the craft that we're so passionate about. And since I joined ALTA 4 years ago, I haven't missed a conference, and they're fantastic. I mean, they're simply stimulating. I find myself going to panels in fields that I have no particular experience or expertise in.
And the work that ALTA has done has been to raise awareness in this country and really to change the landscape. I would say now that people understand literary translation as something which is a high art as well as a craft.
I think, without ALTA, there just wouldn't be any sense of a community. I mean, ALTA provides those of us who are spread all over the world in dozens and dozens of languages, the sense as if we belong to some community of fellow spirits. I mean, we're so isolated both geographically and institutionally that without ALTA, I just think most of us would feel like we were alone. And I mean, there isn't anything I look forward to more during the year than the annual ALTA conference. And I think that is, to me, the most important thing that ALTA does.
It's been crucial for me, and I do not think I would have stayed in the profession or had whatever success I've had if it hadn't been for ALTA.
The website, the publication of the Translation Review, the annotated books received, and now also very important is the ALTA newsletter that comes out 3 or 4 times a year, in which all the recent important issues, publications of members, issues of interest to the members are being presented in the ALTA newsletter, which is both available in hard copy and also on the website. So these are the immediate benefits that a member of the organization can receive.
What the bilingual readings have done that I think is important is they allow us to hear languages that we don't normally get to hear at greater length sometimes, and I think that's very important too. So that's where I feel in closest touch with translation, is hearing the original and then immediately a fine translation by an ALTA member.
There is not another organization devoted uniquely to the craft, the problems, the nature, the growth of literary translation. So it has provided something that otherwise did not exist.
So the power that the organization represents has given representation and a voice to translators that I think is immensely valuable. The information exchange that ALTA provides is very significant. Members rely on the organization to bring together the news and information that helps the individual members go forward in their projects, and be given news about grants and other kinds of deadlines that help them in their careers. So I think ALTA is become a clearinghouse that's absolutely essential to the success of literary translation in the country.
It's one of the conferences I most enjoy going to, and it is a place where my spirit is refreshed, where contacts are renewed, and where I gain inspiration for my next project.
It is appropriate after 3 decades to reflect on ALTA's accomplishments. I think we would all agree that through ALTA, the translator has become more visible and more recognized. Through ALTA, translators are able to exchange information and encourage one another in an atmosphere of collaboration and mutual support. ALTA has created, in effect, a community of translators and scholars whose publications are expanding the public awareness of international literatures and languages.
I think that the kinds of accomplishments that ALTA has provided, not only translators but the entire literary community, have to do with the education of young translators, At the time ALTA was founded, I don't believe there was a single program offering a degree in translation, except for the University of Texas at Dallas. The status of the translator in the academy was not very high, and in our first years we spent a number of time writing letters in cases of promotion and tenure, defending the work of translators, particularly in foreign language departments, as acts of scholarship. That battle has pretty much been won, and today translation is understood in many universities as a very subtle form of scholarship and criticism, in fact.
I think it's been tremendously successful. It is the great organization for literary translators. It's the one that everyone in America who cares about literary translation wants to belong to, because they know it's the most fun for our annual meetings, but it's also the one that's made the greatest difference to literary translation. I think it's been a fantastic resource and help to translation in America.
We have solidified, I think, the profession of literary translator. We have validated literary translators who have been anonymous. Typically, the translators was rarely mentioned before Penn and ALTA began demanding recognition for the translator. ALTA has emphasized translation criticism so that the review of a translation acknowledges the accomplishments of the translator. These are among the many accomplishments.
Well, I think it has been a major force in raising the level of awareness about the work of the literary translator, in dignifying that work, in insisting on proper recognition of the translator by publishers and by the public.
ALTA has significantly raised the profile of translation academically. It's, I think, also internationalized the role of the American translator, creating opportunities through connections with other organizations in Europe and Asia and South America, other translating organizations, to raise awareness of what translation is.
I would think the most important accomplishment of ALTA, so far at least, are the fellowship that it creates among people who are very often working alone and perhaps not understood by the people around them, and also the increased visibility for the importance of literary translation in a very isolationist country.
The American Literary Translators Association has given the literary translator a visibility in this country, has supported and pushed translators to become more involved in publishing translation, and at the same time to have made the thinking of the art and craft of translation a paradigm for the revitalization of reading literary texts.
How does ALTA build on its 30 years of accomplishments? There are certainly opportunities and challenges ahead of us. Among the many goals that have been spoken about here today, our future goals are certainly involved with increasing membership and outreach. We should be mentoring the next generation of translators. We will be building financial independence through the ALTA endowment, and technology and electronic media hold many opportunities for us as well. The future is promising for ALTA, and with energetic and creative leadership, I think ALTA will be in a position to broaden its influence and its impact.
Well, I think at this point, ALTA needs a great deal of creative minds to go beyond the level of achievement that we have right now, to increase the substantive quality of its publications, and also to bring in more young translators in the future.
Well, I think in the next 30 years, the organization is going to continue to grow. I think it needs to, there'll certainly be a passing of the guard. Those of us who have been around a long time, approaching retirement, expect to see and know that will happen. The vigorous younger generation, both the middle generation and even the younger people who are coming under the fellowship program now, take a greater and greater role. They have to come in, they have to devote themselves to the organization. There's no reason why the organization shouldn't continue to grow, why it shouldn't be solidly based in an institution. It's not necessarily tied to one or another. It's a national organization, but it needs to have the firm support of translators and of people who care enough to give their time to it.
We do have the endowment, and the ALTA members have been very generous. It's grown significantly. We've met all of our goals. The problem with fundraising is most of us are literary translators. We don't have a lot of experience fundraising, and most of us, I think, are probably a little squeamish about asking people for money. Along these lines, we're looking to get some professional assistance here to, again, raise funds outside of ALTA, looking at foundations and corporate grants and the rest of it, things that we're just not able to do at this point.
And I really would like to see ALTA move in that direction, which is not to be exclusive, but more inclusive of writers who are also poets.
What's ahead of us now is an elaboration of that foundation that's been built. I think, in fact, the most exciting work in translation studies is yet to be done. Now that we have a kind of methodology, we have texts in place, we have a cadre of students who've now gone on to become professors themselves, we have the kind of scholarly community that can bring standards to bear and can encourage significant work in the comparison of translations.
But the 30th anniversary is a crossroads because ALTA is now looking into a very indefinite future. We need to maintain our funding, we need to secure our financial future, but more importantly, I think we need to reimagine the role of translation in arts and letters, and we need to redefine the role of translators in a global environment.
My feeling is ALTA, I like to believe that ALTA's 40th could be an extraordinary event where ALTA has become this internationally renowned organization. As literature changes, so ALTA could change. And I hope that when they wheel me in from the home to see it, I'll be thrilled if I can remember any of it.
Con este tango que es burlón y compadrito, Sancho dos a la ilusión de mi suburbio. Con este tango nació el tango y como un grito salió del sórdido barrial buscando el cielo. Conjuro extraño de un gorrión hecho cadencias que abrió camino sin más ley que su esperanza. Mezcla de rabia, de dolor, de fe, de ausencia, llorando la inocencia de un ritmo juguetón. Por tu milagro de notas agoreras nacieron sin pensarlo las paicas y las grelas. Luna en los charcos canyengue en las caderas y una ansia fiera en la manera de querer.